Dearly redheaded, we are choosing consciousness today to get through this thing called grief. Interesting word, grief. It means love, which makes for a mighty good joke. But I'm here to tell you, there's nothing else. Just joy. And if the big picture tends to bring you down, go crazy once your life goes. Woo!
It's your natural born redhead whose grays are showing. This morning I have Perry with me. I've known Perry for probably, 15 years. He came to my home delivering fuel 15 years ago. At least that's how we think it happened. And then he subsequently was active with the March of Dimes. We stayed in contact over Facebook. I spoke with him yesterday for an hour and a half. That's the most I've spoken to him since I've known him in the 15 years. The reason I wanted to interview him is I find Perry, who's 65, to have incredible emotional intelligence. I know he's been through a lot, so I wanted him to speak to how he's gotten through what he's been through. So yes, hi Perry.
Good morning.
Yesterday we spoke for, like I said, I think I said, an hour and a half, and we traversed a lot. And I'd like you to start with your childhood and your mom and what subsequently happened, what decisions your dad had to make.
I was born in 1960. My mom, I was the third of four children. My mom was pregnant with my younger brother in September of 1965, and she was rear-ended at an intersection over in Dutchess County, New York, coming home from her parents' house. And her injuries subsequently, my little brother was born. He was probably actually born premature because of that accident. He was born on September 10th. I was a little guy just starting kindergarten, and on September 22nd, my mom succumbed to her injuries from that accident. I have recently had been going through a bunch of boxes of things that I have gained possession of over my lifetime. And one of those boxes had a report card in it from when I was a kindergarten kid. And the notes, which I found to be a little bit surprising to me because I'm a pretty outspoken kind of guy. I don't remember the content other than the fact that this note said that I was kind of withdrawn from the other kids in the class, and except for Elaine. Elaine was my next door neighbor, little street called Huguenot Street in New Paltz, New York. She was my next door neighbor, the family, and we were like little toddlers together, apparently. And but she was my closest friend in kindergarten. And with that realization, I actually contacted her to let her know, to thank her for that friendship that I needed so badly. But my mom passed away. And, when my mom passed away, my dad, gathered up. There were three of us at home, and my littlest brother came home from the hospital, and he went directly to my mom's parents' house, where the other three of us guys went to my dad's parents' house. And, I'm thankful, for my grandparents on both sides. But mostly, my grandmother, my dad's mom, how they were retirement age. My grandfather was retired and all of a sudden they're opening up their house, to 4 little boys ultimately and their son. And we basically spent the rest of our through adolescence, um, you know, living with my grandmother. It was kind of cool. Um, I was a bit of a challenge in the teenage years. I got arrested when I was a 15-year-old kid. I was kind of a problem child. I was looking back now, I was just looking like I would joke. I joke with my dad later in life um, that he was the only person who had a reserved parking space at every school I went to, directly next to the principal's parking space, because I would lash out. It was clearly anger bottled up in a little boy that felt ripped off because of the very fact that in that kindergarten class, when it was my birthday, my mom didn't bring the cupcakes for the class to have. That doesn't discount the fact how grateful I am my grandmother did. Um, so it was kind of a tumultuous, or whatever the word is, getting through. There's a lot of turmoil, you know. Through my teenage years, I got expelled from high school. They weren't going to let me come back. I was assigned a math teacher to be my go-to guy, and they actually did let me come back. I was expelled when I was 15, so the state had to provide me an education through tutors who would come to my home 4 days a week. I had a different tutor every day for different subjects, whatever your high school classes are in ninth grade or whatever grade that was. And then they agreed as long as, I stayed in line, and that was basically one strike, you're out. I actually met a girl in high school on the school bus. Her name was Susie. And I had recently spoke to her and thanked her for getting me through high school, because if it wasn't for her love, I probably would have been a high school dropout. But I did complete my high school career somewhere in there. I started a job as a 13-year-old kid, carrying cases of soda and stocking shelves at the local beverage center in New Paltz, which I worked at. When I turned 18, shortly after I turned 18, I became the manager of the store, and I worked there till I was 33 years old, 33 or 32. But it was like a solid thing. The gentleman that I worked for, we're still best of friends. But he became kind of like a second dad for me. And, it was a journey. It was a journey getting through that adolescent time. I was kind of the rebel kid with my fist in the air, wanting to be heard. And it took me a very long time to figure things out. And, that was much later in life, back when I was, 2011, my first granddaughter passed away. I kind of had an awakening, if you will.
Right.
But a lot of life happened in between there.
I got you. We're gonna move to Olivia, but I just want to say something that I asked you yesterday. You do not recall abuse from your father or other relatives as far as strict disciplinarian mentality, but not emotional or extreme physical abuse, correct?
That's correct. No, there was nothing. One of the things, we were at as we aged, we were four young boys under the umbrella of our dad. Um, so we were basically five men. We didn't use the word "I love you" when we went to bed. As I've raised my two sons, I've been sure they're all old now, but I was sure to make sure at bedtime they went to bed, and the last words they heard were, that the words "I love you." And to this day, when I see my boys, my grand boys, I don't leave the house or have them leave my house without the words "I love you" being spoken. That doesn't mean the love wasn't there. I
Right.
know nobody loved me and my brothers more than my father. Was he the typical disciplinarian of the 60s into the 70s? Absolutely. I got quote unquote spanked, you know. I got chased across. I remember I called my grandmother a crazy lady or something. And my grandfather, who was my age, chased me down and grabbed me, carried me under his arm into the kitchen of the house and stuck my head underneath the water faucet to cool me off because I was just that rebellious little hothead.
Yeah.
And so, was there any abuse? No, no, nope.
You said you were that rebellious kid because you were mad at God because he took your mom.
Yep, yep. And it took a long time, and I don't know. I really came to a better understanding of the powers around us once I got through the adolescent rage of being ripped off. Um, one of the things I think that kind of changed my view. I have a friend. His name is Bob. He had substance abuse issues, and he supported his habit by working for a company removing asbestos down in New York City. They did not have a very good reputation, the company he worked for. He ultimately passed away from lung cancer because they didn't have the proper gear, safety equipment. And sometime after he passed away, that was the late 90s, I had a dream that was more than a dream. And the best way I could describe it is I was able to look through the mirror to the other side. And my buddy Bob came to visit myself and another friend in a restaurant down in New York City. I remember paneling. It was like a nice place, like it was wood panel instead of paneling. And I was like, holy crap, there's Bob in that booth over there. And I got up to go over to say hi, and he professed that I don't know him. But I'm like, Bob, it's me, dude. I thought you died. You don't know me. You mistaken me for someone else. And as we headed towards the door, as I was following towards the door, he turned around and he said, you can't come with me. You have to die to come with me. And I woke up like in a terror, like I had this incredible quote unquote nightmare that I came to realize later it was Bob. It was Bob coming back, knowing we lost our best friend. He was, there were three musketeers. It was me, Bob, Greg, walking down Main Street with a boom box, listening to Led Zeppelin or Kiss or whatever was playing that particular day. If you saw Perry, you saw Bob, and you saw Greg. We were almost inseparable in our teenage years. And it was a tragic loss, man. It was totally out of the blue. We never thought any of us, It was late 90s, so he didn't make it to 30 years old. But that quote unquote dream gave me a perspective of things go on beyond what we can see. We're so accustomed to reality, and that chair is a chair, and that window is a window. But that mirror I was able to see through for a brief moment in the middle of the night back in whatever, 2002 or something. And it enlightened me, it really changed my thought process. And it prepared me for things that would come in the future.
Right. Right. It was a gift, spiritual gift. I just want to do a time check. Okay. We're about halfway through this episode, and I want to sort of fill in a few more dots before we get to Olivia. When did you meet your first wife?
My first wife, we met in the early 80s. I'll say about 83. My oldest son, I adopted him. He was, he was her son when we met. I want to say he was 2 or 3 years old. He was a little guy.
Right.
Wasn't in diapers. We used to call him Goober. It was just this little Goober. And when we met, things blew up pretty quick. And, we went from dating to living together. And, and we were together until, we went our separate ways. Things began to fall apart probably in the early 2000s. 2001 to somewhere in that window of time. But yeah, we met when we were in our mid 20s, and Brandon, I immediately became a dad to Brandon, and it was, but we to this day, have a fantastic relationship. It's actually sometimes it seems better than the relationship that I have with my natural born son that I'm, technically the father of, where, Brandon and I, somebody else is his technical dad, but I'm absolutely his father. I think I'm probably the only father figure he ever knew outside of maybe his grandpa on his mom's side. But that relationship with Karen kind of, wound through the courses of life. And I think as we grow, some of us grow together, when we all see some of them relationships out there. My old boss, Gene, from the beer store, he and his wife were high school sweethearts. She passed away a few years ago now. She had Alzheimer's. But they loved each other, and he still loves her. And they've been together for basically their entire lives. But not all relationships go that way. And, so our relationship began to fall apart. And, we kind of decided at some point during a heated debate that, once Liam, our youngest son, who's now 30, once he goes off to college, that we would stay together through his high school and his school years, until he, we wanted to provide a 2-parent household for him. So we basically tolerated each other, I think would be a good way to put it. and once he went off to college, that ended our relationship. We still stay in touch. She comes, to our house for Thanksgiving every year. And she, was at grandkids' birthdays and all the things that life is. We're intertwined. We can't, she's still the mother, even though we don't see eye to eye. She's still the mother of my children. And for that, we have to see past one another's faults. And we both have faults. A relationship doesn't fall apart because one person is worse than the other person. In some cases, I guess that is true, but not in our case. We just kind of fell out of love, kind of thing.
Yeah, when we were talking about this yesterday, a big part of what I'm trying to do is harmonize the energy between men and women and everything in between. We're not in a harmonious groove for many reasons. So I was very intrigued in that time frame how the two of you made that decision to co-parent, which was just so. I know a lot of people historically stayed together but made one another's lives miserable, and it just seems like within the marriage you made the decision to co-parent. And fast forward to today, and after talking to people and having my own experiences, that decision to co-parent may not be happening under the same roof, but unfortunately it's not being more supported under two different roofs. It eludes me why my ex and I couldn't co-parent separately. Just sort of like a modern day way that you and your first wife, I'm trying not to use her name, made that decision, whenever you said it was, to raise Liam to the point at which he went off to college. I just commend you for knowing it and doing it. In today's environment, I wish we could do it just in a co-parent way, but it's hard to afford separate lives, so that bears on people financially and emotionally.
Yeah, I agree.
It's harder to do today, but it would prove beneficial. How about that?
I think Liam is a better person because of it. You know what I mean? Because I, as a child growing up, I had my dad. He was, like all the other kids would go off clothes shopping with mom and back then the malls weren't really a thing. So it'd be whatever, the department store was, Caldors or who knows, Sears. Our dad took us, him and four boys traipsing into whatever store, and he was the guy that was helping us pick out our clothes and how were we going to look good. And, so I never had, not that I never had, I have some really, kind of crazy. I know I used the F word as a very young child because one of my only memories of my mom is her washing my mouth out with soap in the bathroom in that house on Huguenot Street in New Paltz. So it's not like I don't have memories of my mom, but I don't have memories of going school shopping is like one of the things that kind of hit me, that my dad was like it. So like when Mother's Day rolls around, I always, when I put something on there, when everyone else is talking about their moms, I talk about my upbringing, and I go, you got to remember the other mom figures out there, whether it was my grandmother, both of my grandmothers, my dad played he was the guy putting Band-Aids on scraped knees, I didn't want my son Liam to miss that. That's where it was important for me, for both of us to be there as he was
I
transitioning through life. I want him to have a better
Yep.
household environment than I had, I guess. I don't know. Not
No,
that mine was bad.
no, I got it. I got it. This is why I wanted to talk, because I have followed your posts and your ability to express yourself and share as you're sharing with me this morning. I just find it remarkable, and I'm hoping that other people can listen to it and just glean what I do from it. I want to now move towards and it just as a point of mention, you did lose your dad when he was
Yeah,
65.
my dad passed away at 61. He had
61.
heart disease.
Right,
He was a smoker his whole life
right. Turned
and
on.
had triple bypass surgery in the late 80s, but could never put down his pack of Camel non-filters. And on May 9th, 1991, he took his last breath. And, I miss him dearly. I can't, I've lived longer now without him than I did with him. And he was the guy. He was the guy. He held us four boys together through thick and thin. Never gave up on that adolescent pain in the butt kids who had him taking days off to go to the school to keep the principal from throwing me out or whatever was going on. He's the guy who I remember we walked out of a courtroom after I got myself in trouble, and we were getting in the car, and he looked over the roof from the driver's side to me, and he said, "That was your college education," meaning that's what the lawyer cost to keep me from going someplace. I probably would have gone to jail or whatever, because of just that stupid adolescence rage, fist in the air, pushing the boundaries.
But he put
But
you
yeah,
he put you in the, I mean, from where I sit, he put you in the position to not pass it on, and I just think that's just incredible.
yeah, and and if it was like an unwavering love. It didn't matter, and my other brothers, aren't perfect either. And my dad.
We're gonna need, I don't mean to cut you off, but
Yep,
we're gonna,
yep.
because we have so much to say, and I wanna start with Olivia in the next episode. I do want to acknowledge that your father was in the Korean War. I
Yep.
do want to acknowledge, of your four brothers, that there are struggles, but you seem to be emotionally unique as a result of how you view things, your perspective. I don't know how else to put it. But I do want to lay the groundwork for talking about the March of Dimes now, or should we, good place to stop? Thank you for listening and supporting Natural Born Redhead. If you follow the bouncing balls, please like and subscribe. If you know someone interested in sparing others grief and inciting joy, message me on Facebook or reach out via my website, Natural Born Redhead. J-Ma.